At my lawyer's office, I heard the recording of my daughter saying, "We need a conservatorship. We need full control," as she plotted to have me declared mentally incompetent. I smiled coldly. This wasn't panic or desperation I was feeling. It was the satisfaction of an engineer who had just watched the final piece of a complex machine click into place. For weeks, Sam Hartwell and I had been building a trap, and Jessica had just walked directly into it. Let me back up. 2 months ago, I was David Miller, retired civil engineer, widower, and what I thought was a loving father to Jessica. At 68, I'd spent 40 years designing bridges and infrastructure systems for the city of Denver, accumulating a $3.2 million retirement portfolio that represented 4 decades of careful planning and disciplined saving. That illusion shattered when Sam called me with 5 words. "Call me immediately. It's urgent." The conversation that followed destroyed my world. The quarterly financial reports Jessica had been sending me were forgeries. Every PDF, every chart showing stable returns, all fabricated. While I'd been trusting her completely, she'd been systematically draining my accounts through a power of attorney I'd signed during Eleanor's final illness. $3 million, David, Sam had said, his voice heavy. It's almost all gone. But here's what Jessica didn't understand about engineers. We don't just build structures, we analyze failure points, calculate load tolerances, and design systems that can withstand immense pressure. When she decided to steal from me, she'd picked the wrong target. Within hours of learning the truth, I'd activated resources Jessica never knew I possessed. Sam Hartwell wasn't just my lawyer. He was Denver's most feared family law attorney, with a 94% success rate in elder financial abuse cases. His retainer alone was $50,000, money I could afford because of investments Jessica hadn't discovered yet. The forensic accountant Sam recommended, Chloe Armstrong, had worked on federal fraud cases. Her services cost $500 per hour, but she could trace financial transactions through the most complex networks. Within a week, she'd mapped Jessica's entire operation. The shell company, Elysian Designs LLC, that Jessica was funneling my money through, was investing in a failing resort development in Mexico, managed by my son-in-law, Tom. They weren't just stealing my retirement, they were gambling it away on a project that was $2.8 million, over budget and facing bankruptcy. But the most devastating discovery came when Chloe examined Eleanor's life insurance policy. Jessica had forged her dying mother's signature to redirect $750,000 meant for our grandson Leo's education directly into her personal account. She'd stolen from her own son's future while her mother lay dying. The recording I'd just heard was the culmination of our strategy. We'd fed Jessica false information about me wanting to sell the house and move to Arizona. The threat of losing her final asset had triggered exactly the response we'd predicted. A desperate attempt to have me declared incompetent through a conservatorship petition. "She's handed us everything we need," Sam said, playing back the audio where Jessica clearly stated her intent to control my assets. Her own words just became our star witness. The conservatorship hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. Jessica's lawyers had filed a comprehensive petition painting me as a confused old man making irrational decisions. They'd even produce fake witnesses, investors in Tom's Mexican project, who were willing to lie about my mental state to protect their own money. What they didn't know was that the court had already appointed Dr. Evelyn Reed, a respected psychiatrist, to conduct an independent competency evaluation. During 2 detailed sessions, I demonstrated exactly what 40 years of engineering had given me: a methodical, analytical mind that could handle complex calculations and systematic problem-solving with precision that impressed even her. "Mr. Miller," Dr. Reed had concluded, "you exhibit exceptional cognitive function. The decision to consider selling your house is, from a logical standpoint, entirely rational for someone simplifying their retirement." Now came the beautiful irony. Jessica thought she was putting my mental competency on trial. What she'd actually done was drag her hidden fraud into a public courtroom, where Sam and Chloe would systematically destroy her with evidence she never imagined we possessed. The recorded conversation would prove intent and conspiracy. Chloe's financial analysis would demonstrate the systematic theft. The forged insurance documents would show the true depth of Jessica's criminality. And Dr. Reed's evaluation would confirm that the only incompetent person in this family was the one who thought she could defraud a civil engineer. As I sat in Sam's office, reviewing our battle plan, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Eleanor's death: purpose. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, precision, and the methodical dismantling of a criminal enterprise that happened to be run by my daughter. "The hearing is in 3 weeks," Sam said, organizing the evidence files. "The district attorney is already reviewing the fraud case. Jessica's frozen assets won't cover her legal fees much longer, especially with Tom's project collapsing." I nodded, understanding the mathematics of their destruction. Jessica had overextended herself financially, betting everything on assets she didn't legally control. When the conservatorship failed, and it would fail spectacularly, she'd face criminal charges with no resources to defend herself. The war she'd started by stealing from me would end with her complete financial and legal annihilation. I thought about Leo, my 16-year-old grandson, who had no idea his college fund had been stolen by his own mother. Eleanor's life insurance policy was supposed to give him opportunities we'd never had. Now, through the legal mechanisms Sam was putting in place, it would. "There's one more thing," Chloe said, pulling out another file. "I found something interesting about Tom's business license in Mexico. The resort development? It's been operating without proper permits for 8 months. Mexican authorities are very interested in foreign investors who violate construction codes. Tom faced potential criminal liability in 2 countries. He'd helped launder my stolen money through an illegal development project that was now under investigation by international financial crimes units. The dominoes were falling exactly as we'd engineered them. Over the next 3 weeks, Jessica made increasingly desperate moves. She hired expensive lawyers she couldn't afford, borrowed money against assets that weren't fully hers, and doubled down on the conservatorship strategy that would ultimately expose her crimes to criminal prosecutors. I watched from a distance as she made every mistake we'd predicted. Arrogance and desperation, Sam explained, made people blind to their own vulnerabilities. Jessica had spent so long manipulating me that she'd forgotten I was the one who taught her to think analytically in the first place. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully in my best suit, the same one I'd worn to Eleanor's funeral, to Jessica's wedding, to Leo's middle school graduation. Today it would witness the legal execution of the daughter who'd betrayed everything our family once represented. Walking into that courtroom, I wasn't the confused old man Jessica had described in her petition. I was David Miller, professional engineer, strategic thinker, and the architect of her downfall. She'd declared war on the wrong opponent. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Jessica's lawyers presented their case first, a masterful fiction about a loving daughter trying to protect a declining father. Their witnesses testified about my supposed confusion and irrational behavior. It was a compelling performance that might have succeeded against a different target. When Sam's turn came, the atmosphere changed completely. He didn't argue or plead. He presented evidence with the methodical precision of an engineering report. Dr. Reed's testimony demolished the competency angle within minutes. "Mr. Miller demonstrates exceptional analytical capabilities and sound judgment," she stated unequivocally. Chloe's financial presentation was devastating. Using charts and timelines, she walked the court through every stolen dollar, every forged document, every fraudulent transaction. The complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts that Jessica thought would hide her crimes became evidence of sophisticated financial manipulation. Then Sam played the recording. Jessica's voice, cold and calculating, discussing the need for full control and her willingness to fabricate mental incompetence to achieve it, echoed through the silent courtroom. But the final blow was the handwriting expert's analysis of Eleanor's forged signature on the life insurance policy. When the court learned that Jessica had stolen not just from her father, but from her dying mother's intended gift to her own son, the last shred of her credibility evaporated. I watched Jessica collapse as the full weight of her exposure became clear. The conservatorship wasn't just denied, the judge referred the entire case to the district attorney for immediate criminal prosecution. Assets were frozen, bank accounts seized, and arrest warrants prepared. Tom, realizing the scope of criminal liability he faced, began cooperating with prosecutors within hours. The Mexican resort project was revealed as a money laundering operation that violated international banking laws. His testimony would ensure that Jessica faced decades in federal prison. 6 months later, the legal proceedings were complete. Jessica received a 12-year sentence for elder financial abuse, insurance fraud, and money laundering. Tom got 8 years and deportation after serving his time. The Mexican authorities seized all remaining assets from their illegal development. I recovered $2.4 million of my stolen money, plus penalties and interest. Eleanor's life insurance policy was restored to its original purpose, securing Leo's educational future. The college fund that would have been worth $750,000 was now valued at over $1.2 million through legal restitution and compound interest. Standing in my garden on a warm spring afternoon, I handed Leo the official trust documents. At 16, he possessed the sharp intelligence that ran in our family, but thankfully combined with Eleanor's ethics and compassion. "Your grandmother wanted you to have the best possible future," I told him as he read through the papers. "She made sure that would happen, even after she was gone." Leo's arms around me were strong and grateful. In that moment, I realized the true victory wasn't Jessica's destruction. It was preserving Eleanor's legacy and Leo's opportunities despite his mother's betrayal. The engineering principles that had guided my career, structural integrity, systematic analysis, and methodical problem-solving had served me well in this very different kind of construction project. I'd built a legal framework strong enough to support justice and precise enough to deliver consequences that matched the crime. Jessica had tried to reduce me to a confused old man, dependent on her manipulation. Instead, she'd discovered that decades of professional competence don't disappear with retirement. They just get redirected toward different problems that require the same analytical solutions. The silence in my house was no longer the quiet of grief and betrayal. It was the peaceful satisfaction of an engineer who'd completed his most important project, ensuring that integrity, justice, and family legacy could withstand even the most devastating structural failures.